I never thought I'd be the type of guy to get blindsided like this. I've always considered myself pretty straightforward, worked hard, kept my nose clean, tried to be a good husband. But honestly, looking back, there were tiny signs that I just brushed off at the time. Sarah, my wife, started acting a little off about 6 months ago. She was more irritable, snapping at me over small things, and there were the late nights she'd claim were work emergencies or stuck at the office. I didn't want to believe she was cheating, so I just chalked it up to stress or her being tired. But deep down, I felt something was wrong, like a knot in my stomach that I couldn't quite untie. We've been together for 8 years. Met in college, got married right after she finished her master, and for the most part, life had been good. We had our routine. I worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, and Sarah was a marketing executive. We had some financial struggles early on. Her company was growing, but money was tight. That's when Mike, our longtime friend, stepped in. He's a big deal in the local community, always willing to lend a hand. When things got rough, he helped us out with a loan, and I was honestly grateful. His generosity kept us afloat during those tough months. Sarah always casually mentioned how kind Mike was, but I never thought much of it beyond that. Then came the little things. Phone calls that she'd hide when I came into the room, texts that disappeared when I looked over her shoulder. She started cleaning her phone obsessively, taking it everywhere, even to bed. I'd try to look at it when she wasn't paying attention, but she'd always catch me and give me that sneering look like I was invading her privacy. I told myself I was just paranoid. Maybe I was overthinking everything. But the gut feeling that she was hiding something grew stronger each day. One particular night, I came home early from a double shift. I'd been working overtime to pay off some debts and keep the bills from piling up, and I was exhausted. I told Sarah I'd be late, but I got back around 9 p.m., earlier than I'd expected. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe cook dinner or just spend some quality time. As I unlocked the door, I immediately noticed something was off. The lights in the living room were dim and I could hear muffled voices. My heart started pounding because I knew something wasn't right. I quietly moved towards the bedroom, thinking maybe she was asleep or just reading. That's when I saw her. Sarah in our bed, lying next to Mike. They weren't just talking, they were engaged in some kind of intimate act. Her hand was resting on his chest and he was nuzzling her neck. I froze. My mind went blank. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I never imagined she'd do this with someone like Mike, who was supposed to be our friend, someone who helped us through our hardest times. It was like a punch to the gut. I stood there trying to process this betrayal, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. I didn't say a word. I just backed out of the room quietly, my legs trembling. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what I'd just seen, whether it was real or some sick joke. I felt a rage bubbling up inside me. How could she do this after everything? After everything Mike did for us. I wasn't even sure if I was more angry at her or at myself for not seeing it sooner. I kept replaying that scene in my mind over and over, her in our bed with him, the betrayal written all over her face and his. It was brutal. I knew I couldn't confront them right then. I needed to cool down, think things through, plan what I'd do next. But I knew one thing. This was the end of my trust in her, and the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for. I spent the night pacing the apartment, trying to piece everything together without losing my mind. The image of her with Mike kept flashing in my head, every detail seared into my memory like a scar. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. My stomach churned, my hands trembled, and a cold sweat soaked through my shirt. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could betray me after all these years of marriage, after everything we'd been through together. It felt like the world had flipped upside down, and I was just standing there, watching it all unravel. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache, and the first thing I did was call in sick to work. I needed time to think, to breathe, to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. I knew I couldn't just pretend like nothing happened. There was no way I could go back to normal after what I saw. But I also didn't want to jump to conclusions or make any rash decisions. I needed answers, and I knew exactly who to ask. I called Mike first. I didn't want to talk to Sarah just yet. I needed to hear it from him, straight from the source. I told him I knew about him and Sarah and that I'd seen everything last night. There was a silence on the other end, and then he finally spoke, trying to deny it at first, but I cut him off. I told him I wasn't stupid, that I'd seen enough. That's when he started stumbling over his words, trying to come up with some excuse, some reason for what he did. But none of it mattered. The damage was done, and I felt my stomach turn at the thought of them together. After the call, I sat in silence for a long time, my mind racing. I was hurt, angry, and more than anything betrayed. I couldn't believe that Mike, someone who had been like family, would do this to us. And Sarah, my wife, the woman I loved, she'd lied to my face every day, hiding a secret that now felt like a knife in my back. I kept replaying her words from earlier in the week, her bitchy tone whenever she dismissed my concerns, her lies about staying late at work, and her excuses about needing space. All of it was just a cover for the affair. What hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal itself, it was the fact that I'd given her everything. My trust, my commitment, my love. And she threw it all away for some quick sex with our supposed friend who helped us when we were down. It felt like a punch to the gut, but also like a betrayal of my entire life. I started questioning everything. Was our marriage even real? Did I mean anything to her? Or was I just some guy she settled for while she was secretly screwing around? That night, I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep living in this fog of lies. I needed to hear her explain herself face to face, though I already knew the answer. I wanted to see how she'd spin it, how she'd justify screwing our friend and betraying everything we built. I kept telling myself I was going to be calm, but I knew that was a lie. Inside, I was boiling with rage and heartbreak. When she got home that evening, I was waiting for her in the living room. She looked surprised, almost caught off guard. I could see her trying to keep her bitchy attitude intact, but there was something guilty about her eyes. I didn't waste any time. I told her I knew everything, the affair, Mike, the whole thing. Her reaction was instant. She rolled her eyes and spat back some snarky remark about how I was overreacting, that I was crazy for jumping to conclusions without talking first. But I cut her off. I told her I saw her with Mike in our bed, that I wasn't stupid, and that I had proof. She looked furious, then defensive, then downright bitchy. "Oh, so now you're accusing me of cheating? You're just jealous because I'm tired of your double shifts and never being around," she snapped, her voice dripping with contempt. "If you bothered to actually pay attention to me instead of accusing me of nonsense, maybe I wouldn't be so bitchy." I could see the lies in her eyes, the facade she was trying to put up, but I wasn't buying it. I felt the rage boil over, but I kept my voice steady. I wanted her to know I was serious. "Stop with the lies, Sarah. I saw you. You're fucking Mike. You think I don't know what's really going on? You've been lying to me for months, hiding your affair, playing me for a fool. I never thought you'd do this to us after everything." My voice cracked at the end, and I could feel the tears threatening to come out. But I held it together because I knew this was just the beginning of something much worse. I had to decide whether I was going to forgive her or put an end to it all. I just didn't know if I had the strength to do either right then. All I knew was that I'd never felt such an intense mix of heartbreak, rage, and betrayal in my life. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Sarah's face twisted into a sneer, and she crossed her arms, trying to act like she was the one in control. "Oh, please," she spat, waving her hand dismissively. "You're overreacting. Honestly, I don't even know why you're making such a big deal out of this. Mike's just a friend. We're not even sleeping together every night, so get off your high horse." I felt my blood boil. Her denial was so typical, always twisting things, always lying. But this time I wasn't having it. I took a step closer, voice low and steady. "You think I'm stupid. You think I don't know what this is. You're fucking him. You've been fucking him behind my back while I was busting my ass to keep us afloat. And you have the nerve to sit here and lie to my face about it." Her eyes narrowed and she scoffed. "You really think I'd cheat on you, with Mike? Are you that insecure? Maybe if you spent more time with me, instead of working all the damn time, you'd actually notice what's going on. But no, you're too busy counting pennies and trying to pay off your stupid debts." That was when I snapped. I was sick of her bullshit, sick of her lying, sick of her acting like she was the victim. I told her to get out of my house, that I didn't want to see her face anymore. Her reaction was priceless. She threw her hands up and started yelling about how I was overreacting, how I was crazy for jumping to conclusions. Her voice was shrill, full of venom, trying to turn it around on me. But I couldn't listen anymore. I was beyond furious. I told her she'd betrayed me, that she'd broken everything we had built, and I warned her that I was done trying to save this mess. I told her to pack her bags and get out, and that she could take Mike with her if she wanted. That's when she finally lost it. She started yelling back, calling me all sorts of names: jealous, insecure, a loser. She threw her phone at me and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night, I sat alone in the living room, feeling numb. My mind kept flashing back to the scene I'd caught her in. The betrayal hit so hard, it was like a punch to the chest every time I thought about it. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could throw everything away for some quick sex with our supposed friend. I felt like I'd been stupid, naive even, to trust her at all. But mostly, I felt hollowed out, like a part of me had died that day. The next few days were a blur. I told myself I was going to be strong, that I wouldn't let her destroy me, but inside I was shattered. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Mike. Every text, every call, every whisper of her voice after that was tainted. My trust was gone, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, hard, by someone I loved and trusted more than anyone. I wanted justice. I needed to do something, but I didn't know what yet. All I knew was that I had to take control of this mess, somehow. After the initial shock wore off, I knew I had to do something more than just be angry and hurt. Sitting around feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to fix anything. I started digging. I knew I had to gather real proof, something concrete that I could use if I needed to confront her again, or, better yet, to make her see how badly she'd screwed up. Over the next few days, I set up a little surveillance system. I installed hidden cameras in the living room, just in case she decided to come back, though I wasn't sure if I wanted her to or not. I wanted her to see what I knew, to understand that I was serious about catching her in the act if she ever tried to lie her way out again. The cameras weren't perfect, but they captured enough. I also kept an eye on her phone, which I knew she always kept glued to her hand. I started reading her messages, the texts, the social media DMs, all the little lies she told herself about how Mike was just a good friend or how she needed space. What I uncovered was worse than I imagined. There were dozens of messages exchanged, flirty, explicit, downright disgusting. They weren't just sneaking around, they were actively planning dates, talking about what they'd do when nobody was home. She'd send him pictures of herself half naked, and he'd reply with equally inappropriate comments. The worst part, she lied to my face about everything. Every excuse she'd used, stress, work, being tired, was just a cover. She'd been cheating on me for months, maybe longer. I felt sick reading it all. It made me wonder how I missed the signs. Was I just too blind? Or was I pretending not to see because I didn't want to face the truth? I kept telling myself I should be angry, but honestly I was also devastated. The woman I married had turned into a stranger, someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of betrayal on this level. One night, I decided I couldn't keep this all inside anymore. I confronted her again, this time with the evidence laid out in front of her. I played the recordings, showed her the messages on my phone. I wanted her to see the truth, plain and simple. Her reaction was nothing I expected. She started crying, then yelled at me that I was just jealous or that I was trying to control her. She told me I was crazy for spying on her, that she was just stressed and needed a break. But her words sounded hollow. She knew I had the proof, and she knew she'd been caught red-handed. I looked at her and felt a strange mixture of disgust and sadness. I realized that her excuses were just that, excuses. She was a liar, a cheater, someone who had destroyed what we built. I asked her directly if she loved Mike, if she'd been sleeping with him. She dodged the question, tried to deny everything, but her tears told me she knew she was cornered. I told her it was over, that I wanted her gone. I told her she had to choose me or Mike, and that there was no way I was going to stay with someone who'd betray me so blatantly. She shouted at me, calling me all kinds of names, said I was insecure, that I didn't understand her, that I was holding her back, but I wasn't listening anymore. My mind was made up. I felt numb, yet furious. I couldn't believe I'd been such a fool, that I'd trusted her for so long. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, a liar, a cheat, a traitor. And I knew from that moment on I had to decide if I was going to try to fix this or just cut my losses. But one thing was clear, I wouldn't be the fool anymore. I was done. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and tough decisions. I didn't want to jump into anything rash, but I also couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I started packing my own belongings quietly so she wouldn't suspect I was planning anything. I knew I had to remove myself from this toxic situation, but I also knew that simply kicking her out wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, to understand that she'd destroyed our marriage, our life together. I spent hours devising a plan. I knew her weak spots, her arrogance, her bitchy attitude when she didn't get her way, her tendency to lie her way out of problems. I decided that my best course was to turn the tables, to make her realize how deep she'd fallen and how much she'd lost. I wanted her to see that her betrayal wasn't just hurting me, it was destroying her reputation too. One evening, I set everything up. I contacted a private investigator, someone who could gather proof of her ongoing affair with Mike. I wanted undeniable evidence, videos, photos, conversations, that I could present to her if necessary. I also prepared a detailed timeline of her lies, showing exactly when she was sneaking around, when she was lying, and how long she'd been betraying us. I knew I'd need this to make her understand the gravity of her actions. Then I sat her down. I told her I had one last thing I needed to show her, a record of her lies, her cheating, and her betrayal. Her reaction was a mixture of panic and anger. She yelled, calling me every name in the book, accusing me of spying on her, of invading her privacy. But I stayed calm. I played her the recordings, the messages, the evidence I'd collected. Her face turned pale as she realized I wasn't bluffing. The audacity she had, lying, sneering, trying to play the victim, all unraveled in front of her. That was when I told her she had to leave, that I was done with her lies, her betrayal, her manipulation. I handed her a bag and told her to pack her things, that she could go stay with Mike or her parents. I didn't care. I didn't want her under my roof anymore. The look in her eyes was priceless, defiant, furious, and finally defeated. She screamed she'd never leave, that I was overreacting, that she still loved me. But I knew better. Her love was just a lie, a facade hiding her real intentions all along. I watched her pack her bags, her bitchy attitude replaced by a desperate anger. When she finally left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. The house was silent now, like a ghost town. I sat down, exhausted and empty, staring at the spot where she used to sleep. All I could think about was how I'd been played for a fool, how I'd trusted her for so long, only to be betrayed by the one person I thought loved me. That night I finally allowed myself to feel everything, the pain, the anger, the sadness. I realized that I'd been holding on to a dream, a lie that she'd sold me. But I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in this spiral forever. I had to face the reality and start trying to rebuild my life. The betrayal had shown me who she really was, and as much as it hurt, I knew I had to cut her loose to save what was left of myself. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I promised myself one thing: I'd never let someone betray me like that again. In the days that followed her departure, I felt like I was walking through a fog, trying to piece myself back together. It was shock, heartbreak, anger, all tangled into one big mess that I didn't know how to untangle. I kept replaying every moment, every lie, every betrayal, trying to understand how someone I loved so much could do this to me. But as painful as it was, I also started to realize something else. I was finally free. That realization hit hard. For years, I'd been holding on to a hope that things would somehow get better, that she'd come around, that the love we had could somehow be salvaged. But deep down, I knew the truth. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who didn't care about us, about me. Her betrayal was a wake-up call, harsh but necessary. It made me see that I deserved better. I deserved honesty, loyalty, respect, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less. I've been focusing on myself now, going back to the things I love, working out, reconnecting with friends, picking up old hobbies I'd abandoned. It's not easy. The scars are still fresh, and sometimes the loneliness creeps in when the house is silent. But I refuse to let this define me. I've learned that betrayal isn't just about the other person, it's about how you choose to recover from it. I've realized that I don't need her or her lies to be whole. The hardest part was accepting that I was played for a fool, that I gave her everything, my trust, my love, my future, and she threw it all away. But I also learned that I can survive this. I can look at myself in the mirror and know I was honest, faithful, and true. The betrayal hurt, but it made me stronger. It taught me that sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself. Now I'm taking it day by day. No more lies, no more betrayal, just me rebuilding from the ground up. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Don't let someone's betrayal break you. Use it as a lesson, a reminder to value yourself more. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's hard to repair. But you can choose to move forward. You can choose to heal. And in the end, that's what truly matters.